Hi everyone, my name is Irene.
My name is Ethan.
And thank you so much for joining us to session 2 of our Beethoven Tempest Seminar. Let's get started. Alright, again, thank you so much. This is the second one of the series. We focused on some of the contextualization and the background of the sonata, including by introducing, Ethan did a little introduction on Beethoven's life, music, and style, and I talked about Shakespeare's life, place, and era. And we'll begin today's session by doing a very quick review on what was covered last session. So some of you weren't here last time. You will get a quick catch up on what we talked about. Following that, me and Ethan will take turn to do a music analysis, which includes a demonstration of certain parts of the song to introduce you to the music structure, namely the sonata form, as well as some of the musical terms that's being represented in the music, as well as look at the story part of it, right? The more interesting part of it, the story plotline. Look at how Shakespeare's play fit into the music. So I will cover movement 1, and then Ethan will do movement 3. I will do a very short introduction on movement 2, but we won't talk about it too much during today's session. Let's get started then. So, quick review. Beethoven was part of the classical period and late classical. So if you look at the timeline that I have attached here, by the time that Beethoven has begun composing, our major two early classical composers, Mozart and Haydn, has already died. Well, Mozart died a long time ago. Haydn is old and has really stopped composing. And so during the majority of Beethoven's career, he really had that stage of piano musician to himself, because Schubert won't start composing until much later. So Tempest was composed in 1805. By this time, Beethoven is age 32 and he is 60% deaf. If you remember what Ethan mentioned, Beethoven began experiencing hearing loss, and that is something very, very disastrous for a musician, because how is he supposed to compose and play music if he can't hear? So the Tempest was a stormy plot and atmosphere is written during this time when he is diagnosed by his doctor that he is now 60% deaf. He is anxious. He thought about suicide, and this is only the early middle part of his career. So how did he cope with all that emotion in this piece? How did he incorporate the classical original characteristics, such as your sonata form, into this music, but yet already experimenting with new characteristic that's more common in your romantic period, as we will discuss later. So that's a little bit about the background. The Tempest, you might have heard me mention Shakespeare before. You're wondering, why on earth do I worry about Shakespeare? Well, here's the answer. When one of Beethoven's friends asked him, how do you interpret this new sonata that you've written? Beethoven told this friend, both of them are Shakespeare big lovers. He told him, well, go read Shakespeare's play, The Tempest. So this is where this sonata number 17 later gains his name, even though Beethoven didn't name it. Remember, program music, which is music with title, isn't really a thing until the Romantic period. And we're still in late classical, so this name was given by other people, not by Beethoven himself. But it is important to look at the plot of Tempest and see why exactly did Beethoven tell his friend to read this to interpret the music. So, short introduction. You are in the middle of a Mediterranean island. It is a romantic comedy story. So let's start from the beginning. You're on the Mediterranean Sea. There's a ship. On that ship, you have 4 important people: Alonso, king of Naples; Ferdinand, his son and heir; Sebastian, his other son; as well as Antonio, Prospero's brother. They're on this ship returning to Italy after visiting a friend's wedding. when they hit a storm and the ship sunk. Luckily, they did not die. Everyone survived it. In the meantime, on an island somewhere in that sea, Prospero, our main character, who is also the former Duke of Milan, watches this with his daughter Miranda. Miranda feels bad for the people on the ship, but Prospero tells them, well, these people are actually my enemy, so I'm bringing them over here so we can settle the past. Ariel is a spirit who Prospero rescued, and Caliban is a mooncalf. These two are the other people who are on the island with them. So very brief summary. After they arrive on the island, two important things happen. One is Miranda and Ferdinand fell in love. The children of two enemies fell in love. Very similar to Romeo and Juliet, isn't it? And there's the servant, those who doesn't have the power but want the power, wants to kill two people, Prospero, the leader of the island, King Alonso, the leader of the kingdom of Naples, in order to take over that power. However, remember Prospero, one has magic. Two, he has his servant spirit Ariel. Their plot did not succeed. Finally, happy ending. Prospero forgive everyone. Everyone came together, meet everyone. I forgive you. We will go back to the kingdom of Naples happily. Ariel was freed, and Ferdinand and Miranda was able to get married happily ever after. So that's the plot of The Tempest summarized very quickly. Now let's transition to looking at our music sheet and a more thorough analysis of what exactly happens in our song. Okay, so on the left is kind of agenda of what we'll talk about, and on the right is our music score. The highlighted sections mark something that's important that I will talk about. If you see a color scheme that is repeated, then that probably means it's the same motive that's repeated, but differently, or the same. Okay, so let's get started. What's the first section according to Sonata Allegro form? Introduction. So in Sonata number 17, we don't jump straight to exposition. We begin with introduction. Alright, check. Beethoven does that correctly. Second thing, movement 1. What tempo is movement 1 supposed to be in? Being fast, usually allegro. You see allegro here, but what else you see? Largo, adagio. You see 5 tempo markings in the first 8 measures. Wow, wow, wow. What's Beethoven doing here? So like I said, Beethoven does not stick to conventionality. Well, Ethan said that as well. Beethoven does not stick to that conventional characteristic of classical period. He likes to experiment with it. He's making that transition to romantic period using his work. So we began motive A in Largo. Very dreamy, soft, slow. It's as if the storm's not happening. So I like to think of this section, motive A, is when our main characters are still on that boat. They don't know about the storming coming ahead. They're happily returning home from a wedding, and they're relaxing, not knowing the danger that's creeping ahead. However, very soon motive B comes in allegro, in a fast tempo, and it's in like a reality that slaps them hard in the face. So let's listen to it. It's then repeated, building that agitated feeling until we goes to our motive C. Back to adagio. So largo is very slowly, broadly slowly. Adagio is also slowly. So now we're back to slowly. After a diminuendo, back to soft. The danger only just creep by in somewhere far away. They saw the storm. The storm maybe will shook the ocean a little bit, but we're back to dreamy feeling. As Beethoven brings us back our motive A again. That is followed again by motive B, but this time it's longer. That agitated feeling builds up even more until it leads us right to our exposition, where the storm officially begins. So let's hear it. Our storm is now here. So let's look at how Beethoven brings that storm in. How does he build that agitated feeling? Of course, we begin with piano. We end forte. Why begin with piano? It's to make the contrast even more clear. You begin very soft and you end very loud. Number one way, you increase the volume. Number two way, you add more notes. Look at the left hand. It goes from 2 notes to 4. Add more notes. It naturally gets louder. Number 3, we increases the interval. We begin with a second interval, but we end with a octave. The distance is growing, so is the tension, and so is your feeling of danger. We're going down, then we start going down. However, he wants us to keep that forte, keep that feeling of agitation still up. It's like you're riding a roller coaster. You go up, you go down, but the danger is still not gone yet. Last thing to look at these forzenzos. In cut time, what beat of the measure are you supposed to stress? Certainly not at the very end of the measure. You usually stress beat number 1. So by putting that loudness at the very end of the measure, Beethoven gives you a feeling of imbalance, a feeling that you're about to tip over, to further add to that feeling that the danger is looming in the way. Alright, so let me go ahead and play the end of that section again and a little bit of exposition, and let's look at how the storm begins. So, D minor. Exposition begins in our home key, D minor. You might have noticed, yes, this is our motive A, same color. It's now repeated at the bottom voice. So remember, motive A is. Now it's changed, so it's. Motive C is also repeated, but in the right hand and stretched out. So if you remember, motive C was originally. Oops. Now it's repeated but stretched out. So that's what the storm composes of. Beethoven then repeats again as. If you notice, same rhythm, same pattern of notes, but it has moved up the key. What is it supposed to be called when you do that? It's sequence, when you repeat a motive but somewhere else in the keyboard. On the other hand, our right hand is repeated exactly the same. First time, second time, exactly the same. What is it supposed to be called if you repeat something exactly the same? Yes?
Repetition.
Yeah, good job. Repetition. Okay, so, and meanwhile, you notice the pattern of triplet. That can be thought of as a wave. It's just there, rolling up and down, up and down, up and down, always there. The left hand, well, the middle voice is a wave, right? So what's the bottom voice? Danger is looming. There's a monster down on the sea who's trying to pull you down. That represents a demon. Now I have something up on the right hand. So if you notice, left hand they want you to play it as forte, or right hand, piano. This represents the people on the ship who are praying, who are desperately trying to survive, who are hanging onto their dear life, the sailors trying to make the ship not crush. So it's not very soft. It has nothing to compare with of the demon, right? However, as we move into the bridge section, watch how the blue section becomes shorter. The storm keeps rolling on. The people on the ship feel like they have a lesser chance of surviving. Their hope is giving out. It becomes shorter, but it also becomes louder. You see how now, instead of a piano, it's now for Zendo. They know that their life is about to end soon, and they're desperate. So that's why the intensity is building up through this way. So now let's listen to the section entirely. And notice how again Beethoven built that section using the technique 1, increase the volume, 2, increase the number of notes, 3, move that melody to gradually move it to another part of your keyboard. So let's listen to it again. Which is A minor. We're now modulating to A minor, beginning our theme 2. The storm is still there. The people are still in the storm. However, instead of a triplet, it's now more notes, more distance between the notes. What does that mean? The storm is getting bigger. Right hand also becomes more busy. This entire phrase is that and then repeated 2 more times in different parts. So again, even more sequence. It gives a rolling type of feeling as the people on the ship now has no more control on where they're going. Rather, they're just rocking back and forth on the ship along with the storm. What time are we at? So I won't play it again right now, but we will be doing the performance of the entire song later. So you will listen to the entire part later. Now we're at bridge 2. So after that, all the rocking feeling. Finally, it softs down, and the number of notes decreases, which means the storm is probably on its way to end. This is a retrograde of your motive A, which means it is being played backward. So it was, now it's, the retrograde is repeated again in sequence and then fragmented. So fragmented, it's shorter. And then even though your notes are going up, he writes a decrescendo. We're softening down. Piano. We are finally landing. If you look at the left hand here, again, that's your motive A repeated. Even though you still get that ominous feeling, but now you feel like you're landing on solid ground. You're no longer in the storm. You have landed on the island. The rolling notes are over. You are safe, maybe for now. You're at an island. We don't know where you are, but at least you're on solid ground now. This finally leads us to our theme 3, the last part of our exposition, A minor. Rolling this back again, so which means danger's not over just yet. However, you see how the E is kept over as the pedal point? You still have something that's sustained over. So you're still on land. You are still on solid ground, not in danger of sinking. But maybe there's some other new danger that's arising. The storm is still over there in the distant background. It's not away just yet, but at least you're on ground. Repeat it. So with that authentic cadence, we are landed. We finally is able to soft down, and we are at the development section. Another very, very familiar theme comes back from our introduction. However, now remember how we were always at a minor before? What emotion does minor give? Sadness, grief, scared. Now we're at major. D major. Well, it's almost as if all the scary things are over. We are now happy. But he does it 2 more times. After a 2-chord major, we're now at a D minor chord. Well, what's gonna happen? All of this running notes is building up suspense. What is it leading to? With that formato, you can't help but feel like it's not over yet. Something's coming. What's coming? Well, something very similar to theme 2 is back. And what I like to think about it is that we are on the island now, right? We landed on the island. This is what just happened, but viewed from a different perspective. You still have that, but they're both played by the left hand now. And you have a constant rolling, and it's again also played by just one hand now. Remember, Prospero can do magic. Remember, Prospero is behind the shipwreck. So now we're viewing this from the perspective of Prospero and Miranda. Prospero, with the help of Ariel, is creating the storm. Miranda is watching the storm from the island, worried sick for the people who are on the ship and possibly injuring themselves. So this section repeats theme 2. We are on 30 minutes already, so I won't play the entire theme, but look how similar it is. We're almost repeating theme 2 because we're looking at the same story, but just now from a different perspective. So that's why it's changed slightly. And that leads us to another very intense section. Remember what I mentioned before, it's kind of suspicious if you have sforzendo, if you have a sudden loudness on another part of the measure. That's not the first beat. And also repeated so many times. So again, that intensity, that feeling of agitation is building up. Well, we didn't hear it before though. It wasn't in exposition. So this must be something that belongs just to the story of Prospero. Just something that Prospero and Ariel's doing. They're brewing that magic on land, trying to create that storm. So this is them coming to the end of that magic building essentially. Because it will lead us right back to a similar style of stopping down through a series of chords. This leads us to our recapitulation, the very last part of the song. And what's back? All that tempo change is back. So we are back to the introduction again. Well, but you're saying, I'm just supposed to repeat theme from exposition, not introduction. So that's something that Beethoven does very cleverly. This isn't exactly a recapitulation. Reason one is we're not bringing back theme one. Instead, we're bringing back the introduction. And we're adding this section of almost like cadenza, where a player can play with freedom, where they can play at the tempo of their want. This was what becomes, I guess, cadenza and tempo rubato, but tempo rubato isn't a thing in classical period just yet. So again, something that Beethoven comes up. Very quickly, this leads us to a transition. But recapitulation is supposed to repeat what has already been done before, not bring new stuff. That's the second thing that Beethoven does clearly. You don't bring up new stuff in recapitulation, but instead he builds this section, another section of intensity. And this part is Prospero telling his daughter about what happened 12 years ago when his dukedom was taken away from him. You have that same feeling of agitation, but it's another story. This leads again back to our theme 2. Our theme 2 is now in A minor. It was before, it's now, it has modulated from that dominant key to the tonic key. This again is another boat ride, but a boat ride not made by King Alonso, but a boat ride made by Prospero and Miranda 12 years ago when they were escaping to this island. So, recapitulation, talking about another journey. I won't play it again because the rest of it is just theme 2, bridge, and theme 3 repeated, but now it is in back to tonic. Finally, we lead back to coda. It's soft. It's a very humble coda, an extension of the ending. The storm is still there, but it becomes shorter. 2, as it predicts the end of the storm and the return to peace. So that will be it for movement 1. I will do a very quick performance of it now. Okay, so that will be it for movement 1. Movement 2 we won't really go over today, but it's a slow section in the adagio. It very loosely follow the sonata form, and because it's slow, right? So it tells your love story between Ferdinand and Miranda. So now we're going to hand the baton to Ethan, and he will talk to you about movement 3. Thank you.
Hi, so thank you, Irene, for her in-depth and thorough analysis. My name is Ethan Huang, and today I'll be analyzing Sonata number 17, Opus 31, also known as Tempest, and doing movement 3. So this song is written by Beethoven, as many of you guys already know. So without further ado, let's get into analyzing this song. Okay, all right, so this piece is written in D minor. And this is the third movement, so it's pretty fast. Most of the time it's usually presto or allegro, since it's the third movement. But in this case, it's tempo allegretto, which is either slightly slower or slightly faster depending on the definition. It changes sometimes. So yeah, since this is sonata form, there's also 3 sections to it. There is exposition, development, and recapitulation, as Irene explained before. So we start in exposition on theme 1. All right, so throughout this song, Beethoven uses a lot of repetition. So the highlights are just basically portions of music that I thought were thought were repeated. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot of that going around, but it stops in the middle because I kind of got lazy. And also Beethoven uses a lot of previous music from exposition in recap. So yeah. Okay, so now we'll be talking about theme 1 first off. So theme 1 starts off calm, and it uses a lot of repetition to build up to a later portion of the song I'll explain later. And yeah, I'll play a little bit of theme 1 for you guys to listen to. You can see Beethoven uses a lot of repetition. Even in the beginning, you can hear a lot of it, like this. And he'll use, make sure you remember this theme as well, because this theme appears a lot in the later sections of music. So yeah, you can see that Beethoven uses repetition a lot in this song. So yeah. Next, after this portion of the song, there's a transition to a new key. Does anyone know what that is? Okay, so the transition to the new key is called the bridge. The bridge appears in exposition and recapitulation. So the bridge's job is basically to set up for theme 2, and it also set up for theme 2 seamlessly, and in transition from theme 1 to theme 2, and modulate the key, so then theme 2 can start off with the dominant key. As I said before, theme 2 has to use the dominant key of the original key in exposition in order to start. So does anyone remember the original key? Arthur? D minor. Huh? D minor. Yeah, it's D minor. So basically, to find the dominant, you just go 5 steps up. So it's D minor. So this is the key that theme 2 has to start in. So the job of the bridge is to basically transition from D minor to A minor. So Beethoven uses multiple techniques in order to do this, and I'll show you real quick how he does this. So first you start in D minor, and then he plays this chord a couple times. And then he transitions into a 5-7 chord for C major, and then he continues on with C major. After this, he goes this. This is basically just E major, and E major is the dominant for A minor, so it's really easy to transition into A minor. So Beethoven uses this to set up for theme 2. Alright, so next I'll be talking about theme 2. As I said before, theme 2 has to use the dominant key, which is A minor. Compared to theme 1, I think it's relatively more angry and more aggressive. If you think of theme 1 as a build-up, then theme 2 is a lot more stormy. It's basically the release of all the build-up, and it's a lot more stormy part of the exposition. So yeah, there's a lot more repetition as well, since Beethoven uses a lot of repetition in this song. So I'll play a little bit of theme 2 for you guys to listen to. So as you can see, it's a lot more stormy relative to theme 1. So yeah, after theme 2, it goes into development. Let me scroll down real quick. So yeah, this is all just repetition. So now we move on to development, alright? So does anyone know what development does in sonata form? Alright, so it's basically just a mashup of the previous motifs, and as Irene said, Beethoven uses this to develop the said motifs. And alright, the start of development is really calm, like in theme 1, compared to the theme 2, it just like resets everything. And the beginning of development is kind of aimless. It's trying to build up, but it doesn't really have the graphs yet. So it also resembles a little bit of theme 1 and theme 2 without exact usage of a motive. For example, the rhythm and the emphasis on notes is similar to theme 1. However, this changes in the later part of this section when theme 1 itself like comes back into play to set up for the next climax. So yeah. I'll play a little bit of the beginning of theme of development for you guys to listen to. As you can see, it's not as stormy as theme 2, and it's using repetition to build up for the next climax. So as I said before, theme 1 comes back into play, and I'll play a little bit of it for you, and see if you guys can spot the difference between this theme 1 and the theme 1 in exposition, because there are a couple of differences that set them apart. Is it? Here. So this is theme 1. Okay. So did anyone notice any difference between this theme 1 and the one in the exposition? Huh?
Less angry.
I did not mean it for it to be like that, but so basically what changed was the key, first of all, and also the ending is supposed to build up to the climax, as I said before, multiple times. So yeah, that's the two differences that I could notice from this part. So yeah, after the climax, everything kind of falls apart and everything is chaos for a while. But somewhere along the way, the music kind of just breaks, and then it transitions on. It transitions to the next part of the song, which is the recapitulation. So yeah, we're greeted with another theme 1. So yeah. As I told you guys, there's a lot of theme 1s in this song. So the job of the recapitulation is to basically retell what exposition introduced at first, just in slightly different manner. there's sometimes alterations to the key, like in theme 2, and yeah. So we start off with recapitulation. It's exactly the same as the one in exposition for now, but the ending ends a little differently, just like the previous one. So yeah, I'll play a little bit of the recapitulations theme one for you guys to listen to, and see if you can spot the difference again. So did anyone notice any difference? So basically, yeah, like I said before, the ending is a little different. It actually changes into a new key. It actually changes into, B flat major. This is through a little cheeky flat that's introduced in in measure 233, where they keep a certain E flat in order to change the key. So the original is supposed to sound something like this. But in the new version, it sounds something like this. So yeah, it sounds a bit more fulfilling and happy at the end compared to the theme one in exposition. However, this doesn't last long at all, since left hand decides to be annoying and adds a D flat, which changes the B flat major chord into another depressing minor chord, which is the B flat minor chord. So, for example, this is the ending so far, right? So it sounds fine, and then the left hand decides to come in. So the addition of the D flat changes the chord from B major to B minor. So it continues on. The next part is the bridge. So this is there's another difference here. So the job of the bridge in exposition is to basically transition from theme 1 to theme 2 seamlessly, but because they have two different keys. But in the recapitulation, the bridge doesn't have this job because the theme 2 is supposed to be in the tonic key, so it doesn't have to transition from D minor to A minor. However, Beethoven still does play around with modulation throughout this part. As you can see, it changes a couple times from B flat minor to F minor to C minor, and then it's to G minor, and back to D minor in theme 2. And then also it also modulates around 4 times, which is a lot compared to the previous 2, which was in exposition. So that's basically it for the bridge in recapitulation. Now we move on to the theme 2 of recapitulation. So other than the fact that theme 2 in recapitulation is in D minor, there's pretty much no difference from the one in exposition. It still has the same powerful and angry tone as the one in exposition, so there's not much to say here. But the next page is actually quite unique, because in sonata form, after theme 2, it usually just ends. That's the end of recapitulation. But in this song, there's actually some motifs from development that come back, and this is not a usual occurrence in sonata form, because theme 2 is usually the final part of recapitulation. But we knew that Beethoven liked to bend the rules a little bit regarding form and structure. As Irene said, Beethoven is starting to stray from conventional form to enter the Romantic era. So yeah, this mock development is also quite calm and builds up to the final powerful coda, which ends the song. So it sounds like a false sense of hope, where the storm seems like it's over, but there's a much worse part coming your way. It's also quite unsettling because after such a powerful part, which is the theme 2, it just suddenly shifts over to a very calm and peaceful portion of the song. So after that, we go back to the coda, which finishes up the song with some motifs from theme 1. As you can see, theme 1 comes back one more time. In this coda, the music copies a little bit from theme 1, but makes it sound much more grandiose, fitting for a song of such importance. For example, the original theme sounds something like this. Right? But in the coda, it sounds a lot more angry and powerful. So yeah, it sounds kind of different from the one in exposition. After this, the song basically copies the rest of exposition and ends a little differently. With a repetition of a chord that finally ends the piece, as you can see here. Yeah, so after all that analysis, most of us can agree that this piece is quite chaotic and stormy, fitting for its name. In terms of story to music matching, I think this song would most likely fit the storm that Prospero, along with Ariel, created to shipwreck the unfortunate Antonio, Alonso, and Ferdinand. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this song today. Of course, this isn't the most in-depth analysis of Tempest, and a lot of it is still up for interpretation. In any case, thank you guys for listening. That's the end of my analysis today. Next, I'll be playing the full piece of Movement 3, and I hope you guys enjoy.
does Tempest Sonata sound like? If you came in a little bit earlier, we did play the music you heard at the beginning. That was his movement 2. If you're interested in hearing more of it, of course you can go search it up on YouTube or Spotify after you're done. But thank you so much for joining us for this music appreciation session. I hope you walk away with this having a deeper understanding of how Beethoven composes and like how he incorporated the classical characteristic, how he did make he come up with new ideas as well as possibly story plot into his music. Thank you again for coming and hope to see you soon.